The allocation of police in the Western Cape is discriminatory. That was the ruling of the Western Cape High Court. The court says this discriminates on the basis of race and poverty. Now, the Social Justice Coalition says the ruling will allow for fairer distribution, especially in poorer areas. The organization's Dalli Weyers joins us from our Cape Town studios. And Dalli, I do hope that I pronounce your name correctly there. If I didn't, please forgive me and do correct me. But this is a major victory for you, isn't it? You had been making the argument that the distribution of policing resources between areas like Nyanga, if you compare that with areas like Sea Point, it just doesn't gel. It just doesn't add up given population and the rates of crime, and you've gotten exactly what you wanted.
Definitely, yes. So it is a victory for the Social Justice Coalition today, but not just the Social Justice Coalition, for our partners Equal Education and for the Nyanga Community Police Forum as well. Ultimately, there were two declaratory orders that were handed down today. The first saying that the allocation of police resources in the Western Cape is discriminatory, and it's discriminatory on the basis of race and poverty. And then the second declaratory order was that the system used to allocate those resources results in that discrimination. And so importantly for the SJC, that second declaratory order that says that there's a problem with the system, and given that SAPS is a national body and a national competency, that has implications for the allocation of police resources across the country, but the court still has to determine that when it discusses remedy in the new year.
So, Dalli, I mean, if you were to break it down for someone to understand what the problem is that you were pointing out here, Nyanga comes up when we talk police statistics as one of the key centers where murders occur in the country, right? Each and every police statistic will sort of have a high figure of murders in Nyanga. And you were saying that naturally, and I imagine that many people would think that then, you know, given its population size and the number of murders that occur there simply would be more police shifted there. And you've observed that that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, so clearly the court, in making a judgment today and saying that it's discriminatory on the basis of race and poverty, has said that SAPS doesn't allocate sufficient resources to poor black African communities and areas with high informal settlements or high number of informal settlements, and so a high population density. If we look at Nyanga, which is very often referred to as the murder capital of South Africa, Nyanga would have 3 times less police resources than Sea Point if we're looking at it on a per capita basis. And so that just really doesn't make sense. And ultimately what the court determined was that SAPS wasn't taking the issue of murder as serious as it should have. And so it was resulting in this discrimination where communities that face very high levels of extreme violent crime were having to contend with less police per 100,000 people than wealthier middle class and predominantly white suburbs.
And you are saying that, I mean, this case was about particularly the dynamics in the Western Cape and the system of police resource allocation in the Western Cape, but you're saying this is a national problem. So
yes, we did ask for a remedy for the Western Cape province, but we also asked for a remedy nationally. So as I mentioned earlier, the system used by the police to allocate the police resources is called the Theoretical Human Resource Requirements, or the THRR, which is a very complex formula that SAPS uses to make those determinations. And that's obviously set at a national level. So as soon as the court says that discrimination persists in the Western Cape, that has national implications because it means that the system at a national level is resulting in that discrimination at the Western Cape level. And so we can assume that that discrimination is going to be apparent and would apply to the rest of the country too.
Do you suspect, Dalli, that the discrimination which has now been confirmed by the High Court sitting as the Equality Court, do you suspect that it's purely a technical matter, or could there be something more sinister to it? Perhaps, I don't know, a kind of political attitude?
No, so I definitely think, and I think the court was careful to say that this is indirect indiscrimination. So in the theoretical human resource requirement, it's clear that SAPS did try and make provision for poor working class neighborhoods, for informal settlements, but ultimately the formula in its application and in its result has led to this discrimination. So no, I don't think there's anything sinister. I don't think that SAPS is an intentionally hamstrung or hampered police precincts in the Western Cape for political reasons.
So today was about the judgment itself, which went your way. What about the redress, the recourse? What are you hoping for now? What would change the system?
Right, so today was a judgment and a declaratory order, but no remedy was put forward today. And so the judge has asked that we readdress and rediscuss the issue of remedy in the new year. So I guess counsel for both the applicants and for the police will have to meet with the judge in the new year to discuss remedy. But we're hoping, given that the THRR has now been found to result indirectly in discrimination against poor black African communities with very high levels of violent crime, that we can slowly start addressing that system, unpacking that system, and hopefully put a better system that will result in greater equality, in an equitable allocation of resources in its place.
All right, thank you so much for your insights. That is Dalli Weyers of the Social Justice Coalition joining us there and talking to us about that outcome, which found that the distribution of police resources in the Western Cape is discriminatory.